Hello, hello. It has been way too long. I realize that. I apologize for that. But let me go ahead and just get this video out here. I'm not even sure right now if this will turn into like part 3 of my move to Dallas into a 6-month update, because that's how long it's been now. Crazy to think about that. How are you guys? Where are you tuning in from? Leave me a comment. Let me know if you have watched the other 2 videos that I made on my move to Dallas. Or let me know if this is the first time you have found this. I pray that as I share today, even as I just create conversation here, that there's something said throughout the video that gives you confirmation in your own walk, in your own faith journey. And so that is my hope for you. If we have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Crystolyn, and I have just been trying to share this journey because this was definitely a life-altering transition that took place when God asked me to uproot and leave everything familiar to me and just embark on this Abrahamic journey, right? Where in Genesis 12, God asked Abraham to leave his father's house, his native land, everything that he knows, and go to a land that God would show him, that God would lead him to. And so I really do feel like I've experienced that. And here we are, almost 7 months later. And so I just want to pick up where I left off, but also it's been so long, y'all, that I don't know exactly where I wanted to go when I originally was making the video. Now, I know some of the things that I wanted to talk about. I tried to rewatch where I left off last time, but life is so busy. There has been so much happening, which is another reason it has taken so long to get this video out. Some things I won't be able to discuss right now, but life has been happening, okay? And so I just want to share as much as I'm able to today to pick up on how I knew God told me to come here, because the way we left off, that was not closure, okay? So I'm just trying to bring closure to this. I do remember that in the second video that I made on the series that God told me to move to Texas, is that I was having a conversation with my friend Jade. Now, Jade is someone that I met through a mentoring and coaching program associated with a ministry that we were both a part of. And so that's how we met. We weren't super close. I don't know if we had even ever met in person at that point. Yeah, we had met once in person by the time this conversation took place. And so that's where video 2 ended. And I just want to pick up right there. So when I spoke to Jade, I was talking to her just about life, catching up a little bit. It had been several months since we had last spoken, but Jade was also starting her own group for prophetic people, like just to give us a chance to talk to like-minded people with a similar, calling on their life. And so I was really encouraged by being in her group and sharing things. And so anyway, I asked Jade if I could just talk to her one day about, life and just catch up. And I told her I had some questions about some things. Now, the reason I wanted to talk to Jade is because I trusted her judgment. I know that she's a prophet, and I wanted to speak to someone I trusted because this was such a sensitive time, right? Well, the other part of it is that I knew that Jade had also gone through a season like this where God uprooted her from where she was from and moved her somewhere else. So I wanted to talk to someone that I trusted who had also been through a similar situation, so to speak. Jade just started kind of sharing her own journey of how she ended up where she lives. Jade lives in Atlanta. And what she shared with me was that was never her plan. She starts going into this story about how she was planning to move to Dallas, that she had some family and friends there, that connections were being built. She had someone who was helping her get a job with TCU, that she had everything lined up, and she had went to visit and really loved it, could see herself there. And then in the midst of her trying to transition to move to Dallas, God kind of diverted those plans and she ended up in Atlanta. And that's how she got there. And so she started talking about her journey and all of that. But everything she shared, guys, was something related to what God had been speaking to me. I don't know if you recall, In the last video, I talked about how I had, I don't know, it was a dream of sorts, like kind of God woke me up. It wasn't a dream. Sometimes I don't know how to explain the prophetic encounters I have, so I just kind of merge it under the easiest thing I think someone could understand. Basically, it was a vision that I was awakened to where I saw the letters TCU, Texas Christian University. Jade did not know about any of this, but she ended up sharing like, yeah, I thought I was going to work at TCU. I had connections there. I was just like, whoa, Jade, slow down. Can you go back and tell me, what did you just say? And not just about the TCU part, about her whole journey. Like, I was just fascinated and in awe that God was using her testimony of courage and allowing God to pivot your whole life and take you somewhere that you didn't have plans for. I was so encouraged by that. It wasn't until she stopped sharing that I said, Jade, everything that I was going to ask you about, everything that I was going to say, you've already answered it in just you being open and honest about your journey. I was like, I believe God is asking me to move to Texas, specifically the Dallas, Texas area. And I've just been like, I don't know, like, God, is this you? And she didn't even have to hear anything else, knowing that she went into her testimony and just started sharing, and she didn't even really know why. And it was all about how she thought she was moving to Dallas, but God moved her somewhere else. She was like, God is speaking to you. You already know that God is speaking to you. And I was like, are you sure? Because like, this is a big decision. And I just was sharing my fears to the point that, I'll be honest, Jay got a little bit annoyed with me. I don't know if she'll admit that here. She might say I wasn't annoyed. Not that she's hiding how she felt, but like, she might say I wasn't annoyed. I just wanted you to stop questioning yourself, because I still do that. And with such a big move, I do understand why I was in that space and place, because I knew that this was huge. It didn't just affect me. It affected other people. It affected my children. And so I was very sensitive to how I moved and how this came about and how I would plan to do what it is that God was telling me to do. And so anyway, I say all that to say, I wish I had made the video earlier, this video, so that I had fresher thoughts and ideas about it. But the gist of it is this. Everything Jade shared with me before she even knew what I was going to say confirmed what God was saying to me. And I walked away having been asked tough questions by her, having somewhat of a hard conversation about certain things, talking about how God is trying to raise me up in my own confidence and how he speaks to me, but not feeling confident about it all the time because, for lack of a better way to explain it, I've been in church all my life, and people have really tried to make me dumb down my gift. And I'm not blaming anybody else for that. I'm just explaining why it might take a minute for me to be like, oh, okay, so it is okay for me to use this. Because I remember going to people with prophetic encounters that I would have, leaders in the church, and they would shut it down. And so I just wasn't sure sometimes, is it okay for me to share this? Like, what do I say? And so Jade has just been instrumental in being someone to encourage me on this journey. And I appreciate her for that more than she knows. At this point, I had already been on a fast. At the end of 2023, I had started fasting. And I'm going to tell you, I was probably fasting. I'm not going to say every single day from November 2023 to May of 2024 when I moved, but there was a consistency in what God was asking me to do. I was praying with intention and for clarity and asking God to give me instructions on what to do. So he was leading me to fast. I would go on a 40-day fast. I'd get like a week break. He put me on another 40-day fast, a week break, another 40-day fast. And that was so repetitive and it's so necessary when we're seeking God for something so life-changing. And about anything, if you want clarity, you have got to allow your spirit man to speak louder than your flesh. And one of the ways to do that is to deny your flesh what it wants. And so for me, I mean, I love food. Who doesn't? But we also need it. But I was intentional about saying, God, I want the food and nourishment of your word more than I want food right now. And so that was super instrumental in my journey as well. This is where I kind of decided, like, we're now at the beginning of 2024, it's January, and I just kept getting signs. Through prayer and fasting, God was speaking to me about where I was going. And he was giving me dreams. Some of the dreams were showing me where I was going, which again, I didn't physically see these places. So I'm like, what is this, right? Other dreams were him showing me why I had to leave where I was. That was hard. That was a hard time. And that's the other thing about the prophetic. And it's not just limited to the prophetic, but this is what some people don't understand. Some people think from the outside looking in that if you're a prophetic individual, like, oh, you get these dreams and visions and God shows you things, yet you don't control what God shows you. And so he will show you some things that look very dark and very ugly at times. And it can be a lot to take in. And that is why fasting and having intentional time with him is imperative, especially when you're making life decisions. And so if you walk away with nothing else from this video, please know that is something that is, it's a prerequisite to getting answers from God when you're asking him for clarity. You've got to give him that time, and you have to be able to shut down some parts of your flesh and shift something within your lifestyle to say, God, you are the center. You are first. I'm open. I want to hear what you have to say. He may do that differently for many of us. For me, there were different elements to my fast. Of course, there was the food thing. There were certain things I couldn't watch. There was music I couldn't listen to. And so just different things like that. I'm just naming things so that you know that even if that seems small, it's God speaking to you still. He's telling you how to deny yourself so that you can hear from him and get his voice with clarity. I hope that makes sense. The other thing that happened, I don't remember if I already shared this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating it, is that I attended a conference in the fall. So like it was November of 2023 as well. A lot was happening in the fall of last year. And so in November of 2023, I attended a conference called Hush Conference. And I just knew that when I went, it was just a local conference in the Richmond, Virginia area. And I knew that something was telling me to go, but there was something specific I was going to get on that day. It was a 2-day event, and I think I went both days, but it was the first night where I really got what I needed already. So I attended, and I said, God, I just believe that you're going to give me another sign as to where I'm going. You're going to tell me the name of the city, but you're going to continue to reveal that. And so I know that this is going to sound like whatever, but that was my prayer, right? And so at the conference, the worship team that came up was a visiting worship team who was from Mercy Culture, and they are located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so that may be small to someone, but I knew I had prayed to God that I was going to hear the city that I needed to be kind of zoning in on. And so when they said that they were from the Dallas, Texas area, I was just like, okay, God, thank you. Also in that, there was a song that was played in the conference that I continued to listen to. And there were so many words in it that kind of was speaking to me where I was on my journey. So that was another way that I knew. And so let's fast forward to 2024 now. It's January, and I'm like, okay, God, I know that you're telling me I need to touch down in Dallas. Like I need to visit. I need to get there and just allow you to speak to me in the solitude of being where I believe you're calling me to go. So I'm planning this trip. I ended up going the first weekend in February, but I got to go back to January for a second, because it was in January when the new year came in that I was prompted in my spirit to kind of proclaim what this year was going to be for me. Now, I don't normally, I just let God lead, right? Some people, they come with a word every single year. The new year's coming and God, what's the word for me? I really don't do that unless I feel led. It's not like a regular occurrence. And so I felt led to ask God, what are you speaking over my year? And God told me new beginnings. Now, y'all, this was so prophetic and profound for me because God had been talking to me about beginning again. So because I know that some of you are not going to read this, I'm going to go ahead and read it for you because it's definitely an important part of the story. I had written this at the end of December, but I posted it on New Year's Day, 2024. It says, inspired by my girl, Jade Brianna, to release what God is speaking over me and to me, because I had written this down, but then I saw her post hers, and I was like, there's something about putting it out there in the atmosphere that's going to make a difference. So it says, 2024, new beginnings. When I prayed and asked God what my word for 2024 was, He told me new beginnings. He then told me to look deeper at 2024, and I was able to recognize that if I looked at each of those numbers individually and added them together, I'd get the number 8. Spiritually, the number 8 represents the following: new beginnings, new order or creation, circumcision of the heart through Christ, and the receiving of the Holy Spirit. Those in Christ are becoming a new creation, with godly character being created by the power of God's Spirit. This was significant for God to download to me because back in August, the 8th month, when I was experiencing extreme hardship, God kept telling me, begin again. So He was just further confirming for me what He was saying in the present. God is just so awesome like that. So not only does this specific word from God concerning my life line up with everything else He's been revealing to me, but I fully expect to experience new beginnings like never before. New environments, new relationships, friends, family, mentors, etc. New ideas, new thought processes. I receive this. My pastor declared the word upgrade over our church, and even that correlates with what God is saying to me. I feel hopeful, grateful, and most of all, prepared for what's next. When I was facing eviction and God allowed me to seek help through crowdfunding, I did it through Spot Fund, which is similar to a GoFundMe, right? He told me to name it Begin Again. And I couldn't figure out, like, I hear you, God, but like begin again, it felt like such an awful time. It didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like I was just in chaos. And so that was August. So now it's the end of December, and God is speaking to me about my new year. And He's like, new beginnings, new beginnings. And I wish I could just say it how I feel it, but there's no way for me to just relay that right now. It was so much. It was so powerful. When I went to Texas the first weekend in February, the first place that I went was First Watch. It's a restaurant. You're probably familiar with it. Let me know if you've been to First Watch. If so, what location did you go to? First Watch has never disappointed me. I love First Watch, but I love First Watch so much that that's not where I wanted to go when I went to Dallas. I had an early flight that day. And so I didn't eat, I hadn't had breakfast, and I knew that once I got settled into my hotel that I wanted to grab something to eat, but I didn't know where to go. I saw that there was a First Watch nearby, but I'm like, no, I love First Watch. I can go to that in my own city. Like, I don't really want to go somewhere I could go in my own city. Let me go somewhere new. But nothing else was resonating, or it was further away than I wanted to go, and I was starving, right? And so something just told me, exactly, you love First Watch, so go. It never disappoints. And so I went. And y'all, when I get to First Watch, the hostess server who sat me down, first of all, I sat at a community table. That was my first time doing that. So they had like a community table if you're by yourself, or even if you're not, like if you don't need a table, you can sit at the community table, which means it's like a long table. At least 12 people could sit at it, and you just go there if you're comfortable with that. And so I said I was fine because I was alone sitting at the community table. When I get to the table, she hands me the menu. And the first thing I see on that menu, it says new beginnings. I must look like I had seen a ghost or something. The server was just like, you okay? And I was just like, has this always said this? Like, where did this menu come from? Because I knew I had never seen it at a First Watch that I had gone to. And so she was just like, I don't know, but sis, I'm going to tell you this. It looks like you're having a moment of confirmation and that God is speaking to you. So I'm going to need you to just let that do what it do. And I was just like, I couldn't even speak. It said new beginnings. And this was the first place I went to after arriving at the hotel. I was like, God, you have got to be kidding me. Now, mind you, I had no agenda going to Dallas. I just knew I needed to get there and that God would show me what to do and where to go. I also knew that I was going to kind of drive around and just get a feel of the area, but that was it. I had no agenda. And so to see that this was my first stop, and I almost didn't go because I felt like it was too familiar. Like, oh, I love First Watch. I always go. And God was like, exactly. You love it. You just said to yourself, it never disappoints. I need you to go. So I went. So when that menu said that the server told me what she told me, and she's like, I'm gonna check on it though. She comes back when it was time to take my order, and she was just like, so we actually just put these menus out today. The day that I get there, that's when they put this out. Like, y'all, that was a God moment. I'm gonna insert, of course, an image to show you that it said that. The other thing that happened while I was at First Watch was that there was a young white couple across from me. I don't mean anything by bringing up the race. I'm just painting the picture for you, okay? I'm in my 30s, by myself. And across from me is this young white couple, a guy and a young lady. And they just start talking to me. Well, the guy did. And he starts saying like, hey, so, what brought you here? And we're just talking. We end up talking about ministry and God. I think it may have prompted him to have a conversation with me when he saw me bless my food. I don't know if that's what it was, but that may have been it. And he just started having a conversation with me. Next thing you know, his fiance, who hadn't been saying much, she says, so where are you from? And I end up saying, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. And she's like, oh, wow, I'm from Virginia too. I was like, for real? And she was like, yeah. She was like, I'm from Chesterfield. I was like, so right out, that's a county in the Richmond, Virginia area. And I was like, yeah, I'm from Henrico County. And she was like, well, actually, I'm not from Chesterfield. My grandparents live there, and I would spend a lot of time with them. I'm actually from Suffolk, Virginia. Have any of you ever heard of Suffolk, Virginia? Probably not a lot of you. My mom and her whole family are from Suffolk, Virginia. It's a rural area. It's a very large city. There's a large population, but it's rural. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are the odds that I would be here in Dallas, Texas right now and sitting across from someone who's from the area that my mom is from? So then we just started talking a little bit more, but it just felt like such confirmation from God. Like, I'm leading you. I am with you. Don't be afraid. Be courageous. Keep going. And so before we parted ways, the couple asked to pray with me before they left. The guy said, is it okay if I pray with you? And I was like, of course. And so he just ended up praying for me that God would be with me on my journey, that he would give me the revelation I needed to move forward, that he would give me the answers I needed to be confident in moving forward in this journey. And it was just so beautiful, you guys. And that was my first stop when I got to Dallas. Another thing that happened, and I'm just kind of going all over the place right now. Like, I'm not going in chronological order of the trip now, but I'm still on the Dallas trip, okay? So another thing that happened is I went out to eat another day, and afterward, I just felt like, God, I just want to speak to you. I just want to sit with you. Let me back up for a second. When I went out to eat at this other place, I grabbed lunch, and I was like, God, when I go into this restaurant, help me to hear from you through someone else. Like, help somebody say something that just helps me where I am in my process right now. So at the time of the trip, I'm 34 years old. I just recently turned 35. And so just this month, actually, whoop, whoop. And so when I get to the restaurant, the server I have is a young lady who is 34 years old, single mom. She had just moved to the area, the Dallas, Texas area, 6 months prior with her two sons. And she was from Philly, and she just talked about, and she just started sharing all this. I didn't ask her. She just started sharing all of this. She just starts talking about how it was the best decision she ever made and how this was really needed. And it just resonated, obviously, for many reasons. And so I asked her how her children were doing, how the transition was for them, how they were handling everything. And it was just a very beautiful conversation. And I felt like God gave me what I need. So I left there full, not just from the food, but from the experience. And so after that, I leave the restaurant, I get in the car, and I'm like, God, I just want to sit with your spirit right now. I just want to commune with your spirit. That's all I want in this moment, because I feel like you have been speaking to me, and this is such a big deal for me. And I just want to just sit with you. So I start looking up parks, and I go to my Maps app and I look up parks. Like I literally just type in parks. Do you know there's a park that came up called Spirit Park? Y'all, I had just finished saying, I just want to commune with your spirit, God. And Spirit Park came up, and it was within 10 minutes. I don't even think it was 10 minutes away, but within 10 minutes of where I was at the restaurant, that's where it was. So I was like, okay, I hear you. And so I went and I just walked, and I just walked around, and I just took in everything that I could, allowing God to just fill me up. Okay. Just spending that time with him. And so it was just pretty amazing what went on, because there were no plans. I just went and allowed God to speak to me. Ultimately, he just continued to confirm. And I will tell you that everything since 2024 opened up and got here, right? Up until the point that I moved here and left Virginia on May 31st and finally arrived here on June 1st of this year, it was all God's leading, and it was all worked out by him. I didn't have to force anything. That's what made it difficult. And this is a video for another day. That's what made it difficult when I started to experience a lot of turmoil once I got here. God had allowed the journey to be smooth to a degree to get me here. And I think he needed that to happen, because if I had experienced a lot of the turmoil that came after I arrived, I wouldn't have wanted to come. I would have been deterred. And so I want to share this, because I don't want people to think that just because it's God, it means it's perfect. Or now God is perfect, but it doesn't mean our journey is going to be so smooth sailing we never encounter any issues. That's not the case. But please, what God is saying is, be of good courage. Do not be afraid. Have courage. Keep moving forward in what I'm calling you to do. And so I'm just going to mention this because I don't remember if I already did before. Again, forgive me if I've already talked about this, but the number 1367, I had a tag on my car, and I think I may have already shared this, but I'm going to say it real quick just in case I didn't. The pass that I had for work was assigned to me, and it had a number on it. Well, I didn't really pay attention to the number until one day, like in the spring. This was in March. The number stood out to me, and the number on my tag was 1367. The number 1367, according to the Hebrew Concordance, is Jebula. Hope I'm saying it right. And y'all, it basically just means a territory or region. And it goes deeper, talking about a territory or region that God is giving over to his people. And it goes into God speaking to Israel, his chosen people, that he was moving to the land of Canaan. And so this meant so much to me, obviously, right? Based on my journey. But the other part of it is that my son, named Canaan, who is 12 years old now, when I was pregnant with Canaan 12 years ago, God was speaking to me heavily, prophetically throughout my pregnancy. And he was sharing with me that this was Canaan. This is why I had to name him this, because God said, every promise that I have spoken over your life, just like I promised the Israelites, the land of Canaan, their promised land, I want you to know the promises that I have given you, the promises that I have spoken over your life, they will come to pass. Everything that I have spoken over you will happen. And he said that to me throughout my pregnancy. And so for 12 years, y'all, I've been like waiting to see so much of what God has said. I've been waiting to see so much of the things that he has shown me. 12 years is a long time. Like, don't get me wrong. I know some people wait longer. I'm just saying it's a long time. And so here we are 12 years later. And God was speaking to me about, it is now time to move into your Canaan. Because when I saw this number and I began to pray, and I asked him, like, God, like, just tell me the final answer where you're moving me to. And he said, I'm moving you to Canaan. And he took me back to this day I will never forget. I will never forget. I was pregnant and I was standing at a window looking out, and God was just showing me so much spiritually as I looked out and saw the vast sky, right? Which I'm obsessed with. I love the sky. I think that it's incredible. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But God was saying, I promise you that I have plans to prosper you. And y'all, that's not just financially. Like, seriously, what he means first is that he will prosper us in our soul. And so he was just sharing so much throughout that pregnancy. And that's the vision he brought back to me when he said, I'm moving you to Canaan. And what he was saying was, remember the promise. I didn't forget. That's where you're going. And so it was a really, really beautiful experience. I'm so grateful for everything that God has done to get me here to my Canaan. And it's been incredible. As far as my faith is concerned, to just continue to build it up and show me that God really means business. Like, he means what he says, and he will stand on it. He just wants to know, are we going to stand on it too, even when we don't see everything yet? Will we still believe? And so this has been quite a journey. My next video will be an update where I will share the highs and lows and everything in between that I'm allowed to, that God allows me to, is what I mean, that have taken place over these first 6 months. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. But I just trust God. I believe him. I choose to believe him. And every day I still seek his guidance. And because of that, I know that he will continue to lead me, because I never think that I have it all figured out. And that's where I am, y'all. I hope that helps someone. I'm so sorry this video took so long to make. I really don't even feel like I gave everything in it that I wanted to, but it took so long. I just wanted to wrap up that series, so to speak, on my move here, so that I can continue to move forward and sharing the things that God wants me to share. So until next time, I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Please let me know if you have any questions down below. Let me know if you're wondering about anything that I shared. I'm happy to explain, because I realize that sometimes I'm trying to get to the point and I may not explain things as well as I desire to. And so let me know if you have any questions. I am not a hard person to talk to or get along with. And so just let me know if you have any questions you want me to answer, or any topics that you want me to talk about. God is really, really showing that coming here for me was about me seeing myself the way that he sees me. And so for no other reason, I am grateful for that. And I'll see y'all in the next video.